One Piece, From Nobody to Legendary Pirate King. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 11. What? Those imps escaped. What's going on? Except for those 3 girls from Nine Snake Island, others should not have such strong strength. Chamu, what's going on? After hearing the shouts of this dead man named Chamu, the entire people in the Navy ship were boiling, and immediately entered a combat state, and ran out with a gun. Fortunately, a third of the people went to the town. Just now Lu Chongkong and others also killed 3 people, and now there are 7 naval soldiers on the entire ship in addition to the man in gorgeous clothes. Trouble, go all out. Khalifa next to Lu Chongkong shouted, this time is already desperate. If you let the 7 navies in front of you fire at the same time, it is very dangerous. He is not Luffy eating rubber fruit is not afraid of bullets, nor his rubber's terrible endurance and rebound can exert the shaving effect to an amazing point. In the end, Lu Chongkong is now just a 6-year-old child. Even if the physical strength is far beyond the average person, he cannot change this fact. He is still a physical body. If he learns iron, it is better. Now if he is hit by a bullet, then it is finished, even if it is just one. Shaving. Lu Chongkong also did not care about the damage and sequelae to his body after using shaving many times. Anyway, Khalifa told him that his body's resilience would become very amazing when it was greatly traumatized, and the current situation did not allow Lu Chongkong to worry so much. Die. Lu Chongkong roared, like a crazy beast after being injured. With a terrifying murderous aura, he shaved to increase his speed and brushed down to the nearest navy, and the dagger in his hand turned into a crescent moon under the light of the moon, cutting out a dazzling and shining arc. Ah! This sad navy did not expect that the strength of this 6-year-old sister-in-law in front of him would be so strong, and he also understood the Navy's 6-style shaving, although it was only 2 steps on the ground, but the speed under the clever use was also very amazing. Oops, these imps are not simple. Don't keep your hands, although money is important, but also famous enjoyment. One of the Navy's pupils contracted suddenly, roared on his mouth, and then took the lead in controlling the spear in his hand to shoot at Lu Chongkong in front of him. Bang, bang. Lu Chongkong and Khalifa killed 2 people in an instant with the most rudimentary shaving and the scruples of the other party's underestimation. But even in the face of the shooting of 5 navies that no longer left their hands, Lu Chongkong pushed away Khalifa beside him at the critical moment, but 3 of the 5 bullets hit his left hand, chest, and right foot, and poignant blood shot out from his body. Ugh. Khalifa, who escaped the disaster, watched Lu Chongkong being bulleted through her body, a shaky body that was about to fall at any time, and couldn't help but let out a super high decibel scream. But she didn't lose her mind. She knew very well that as long as she didn't hit the point, Lu Chongkong's powerful recovery power that would appear on the verge of death was absolutely no problem to recover. I want you to die. Khalifa screamed, and for a moment Khalifa only felt that the blood in her body was all boiling, and there was a crackling crisp popping sound everywhere in her body, delicate like a small foot carved from white jade stepped on the ground 3 times in an instant. The speed was 3 points faster than before. The 2 daggers in her left and right hands slashed into the void, and the 2 lives were immediately harvested by her. Not only that, Khalifa, who had fallen into a semi-crazy state, completely forgot the burden of her body, and continued to maintain the speed of shaving and rushed to the other 2 navies. Hurry up, that's the Navy Superhuman Technique 6 style. I've heard of this skill, and all I can learn is perverted. The only 3 surviving Navy pupils contracted into a small dot, screaming in fear, but unfortunately it is very dangerous to have the intention of running away during the battle. If at this time they do not run away but choose to shoot, Khalifa in the straight spurt state is certain death, but unfortunately they are afraid of death, and Khalifa is a broken cauldron, so these navies will definitely die. Die. Khalifa waved her arm and the 2 navies who were about to escape immediately bleed, snapped and fell to the ground, and the female emperor on the other side also killed the last navy after dodging the bullets, but even so, when she looked at Khalifa at this time, Meimu was still full of shock. At the critical moment, Lu Chongkong's stimulus to save her from an accident finally broke out, her strength finally broke through, and she could use several 3-step shaves in a row. Chongkong, you don't want to be fine, you promised your sister that you won't leave me. Khalifa, who killed 4 navies in an instant, completely ignored the blood stained on her body or her trembling body, and walked in front of Lu Chongkong with a will that transcended the restraints of her body, held him in her arms, and gently shook his body, for fear that he would leave herself. Ahem. Don't worry, I can't die yet. I'm not a fool. I was ready when I saw the trajectory of those bullets. None of these bullets hit the point. Hey, girl from Nine Snake Island, you go and bring the brightly dressed man below, and let him bring all the valuable things over, quickly. Lu Chongkong first stretched out his trembling right hand and patted Khalifa to signal that he was okay and not to worry, and then yelled at Boa Hancock, who was in a daze on the side. Oh. Boa Hancock woke up involuntarily. Completely did not find that she seemed to be different from usual. Usually she is very proud, even if the powerful warriors of Nine Snake Island and her elders order her, she will not dump them. But now by Lu Chongkong's roar, her body seems to instinctively run to the cabin. After half a ring, Boa Hancock and her 2 sisters came out with a beaten man. This guy was obviously taught a hard lesson by Boa Hancock, and he had long lost his previous arrogance. Okay, push all these bodies into the sea, and then sail the boat. Lu Changkong's face was as pale as paper, but he still forcibly endured the coma that kept coming from his nerves, and said in a small and blunt manner. Boa Hancock and the others immediately followed Lu Changkong's words. As the warriors of Nine Snake Island, they have received various training and teaching since childhood, among which the simple things of driving a ship to control a ship need not be mentioned. Although the body is petite, but it is still very proficient in doing it, light and familiar with the road. Watching the Navy ship slowly leave this life and the 2-year-old island, Lu Changkong suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, but he did not let himself pass out, because his body still had 2 bullets not taken out. The most valuable thing should be the contents of these boxes. Sister, kill him, and then throw him into the sea. There should be medicines and tools for healing injuries in the cabin, you can look for them. Episode 12. After some hard work, the 2 daughters of Khalifa and Boa Hancock finally found healing tools and medicines, and as for the 2 sisters of Boa Hancock, of course, they were responsible for controlling the ship, and at this time, the strength and situation of several of them must find a small island as soon as possible. Otherwise they will soon be found by those navies, and then they will really die. Found it, but no anesthetics. Boa Hancock happily held a box and ran over with a fart, but when he thought of something, his little face suddenly stepped down. Ahem, I thought you said nothing. It turned out to be anesthetic. These things are not in the way. Sister, you come. Lu Changkong chuckled indifferently, as if it was not himself who was injured. This spirit made the eyes of Boa Hancock, who was still a little girl at this time, full of admiration. The female warriors of Nine Snake Island are admired by the strong, because the status of women is relatively low. If you want to be above others, you need strong strength, so the people of Nine Snake Island admire the strong, although Lu Changkong is not yet a strong person, but his performance today is deeply shocked to Boa Hancock. Khalifa did not refuse. After all, for 2 years, they have been injured by each other, and these methods and skills for treating wounds have long been learned from those doctors in the town. Of course, they are all taught by themselves with their books, and the subjects of the experiment are of course those cats and dogs. Khalifa, whose body has recovered a lot, is very skilled in checking the tools in the medical kit, and after making sure that the required equipment is not less, Khalifa immediately picked up a lighter to heat all the scalpels and other tools, and then opened a slight knife at Lu Changkong's wound, took small pliers and put them into Lu Changkong's wound, which is complicated to say, but Khalifa did not make a mistake in doing it, and did not let Lu Changkong suffer unnecessary pain. Phew, 2 more. After taking out a bullet, Khalifa breathed a slight sigh of relief, and Boa Hancock on the side immediately picked up the towel that had been prepared long ago to wipe the sweat from Khalifa's forehead, and at the same time wiped the blood on his body for Lu Changkong, and cold sweat broke out on his face because of the pain. However, it is not the first time that Lu Changkong, who has been injured, did not snort during the operation. Obviously these 2 years of jungle combat career have been of great help to him, whether it is now or in the future. This is the benefit of a solid foundation. The foundation is not only the foundation of the body, but also the foundation of the mind and will and nerves. There is no doubt that Lu Changkong has done a good job in this regard, whether it is willpower, endurance is very fierce. 10 minutes later, Khalifa finally took out all 3 bullets after another effort, and at the same time did not let the wound be infected with bacteria, and it was handled well, and at this time, Lu Changkong's strong resilience played a great role, although it was not exaggerated to recover instantly like Majin Buu in Dragon Ball. But the granulation of the wound slowly squirmed at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye, and the wound did not flow out of blood. Obviously Lu Changkong's wound recovery began to recover from the internal organs of the body. The bleeding has already stopped, so do not stitch at all. Phew, I'm really tired. I want to rest first. Here is handed over to you. Lu Changkong breathed a sigh of relief, although he could endure these pains, but it did not mean that he was not afraid of pain. After completing the operation to subdue him, he also had a feeling of the rest of his life. Just after he said a word, the boundless darkness suddenly eroded towards him, and then Lu Changkong passed out gloriously. Khalifa, you also take a break. Just now I think you should have broken through. Now you are also tired. Leave it to us here. Boa Hancock tried to make his tone softer. After a life and death battle, it can be said that they live and die together. Plus Lu Changkong, the 2 of them show each other that they can sacrifice their lives for each other, has made Boa Hancock fully recognize the 2 of them, so they speak like sisters. Okay. Khalifa did not refuse. After all, it is still necessary to seize the time to recover. Who knows what will change in the next moment. After nodding, he gently picked Lu Changkong up and walked towards the shipyard. Big sister, I have a feeling as if I had a dream. Boya Marigelder, one of the sisters of Boa Hancock, said with a look of emotion. I feel the same way. Boya Sandasonia nodded in agreement and said, well, don't talk about this, we are not out of danger yet. Now we take turns to keep vigil and try to preserve as much physical strength as possible. Boya Hancock waved his hand to prevent the 2 from continuing. Her petite body actually exuded an aura that only a leader can have, making people can't help but have an idea of trusting her, and the body even can't help but do what she says, worthy of being the person who will become a female emperor in the future. And she had this momentum when she was a child. Yes. Facing her eldest sister, her 2 younger sisters would never refuse but would only obey, and the 2 nodded at the same time and discussed the order of the vigil. At this time, Lu Changkong, who was in a coma, found himself in a world with a red moon, a handsome-looking man with a pair of wings that only demons can have, holding a scythe in his hand and constantly chasing him. When he fell to the ground and saw that the sharp scythe was about to cut his neck, the whole world suddenly stopped and then shattered, and at the same time Lu Changkong also opened his eyes, obviously waking up. Is this really a dream? Why do I have this dream every time I get injured in the past 2 years? Is it a coincidence or? Lu Changkong thought for a while, but he didn't have a clue. He could only summarize the sequelae after eating the fruit of the mysterious man, or the sequelae, but when he weighed his body, he noticed that his body had actually recovered a lot, and even the wound had almost healed. It seems that this is not a coincidence at all. Every time I get injured to a certain point, I will enter this dream, but after waking up, my body will recover, and the longer I tremble with that man with demon wings, the more and faster the wound will recover after I wake up. Lu Changkong can already be sure that his phenomenon is definitely not a coincidence, and he has guessed in his heart that 9 times out of 10 is because of the role of that mysterious fruit. This fruit definitely has some magical effect. Otherwise, the person who has the ability to let himself travel through time and space will definitely not care so much, let alone be so angry to throw himself into the world of One Piece. Thinking of this, Lu Changkong is more confident in his path to being strong. Episode 13. Forget it, don't care. As long as I can become stronger, I will know all this one day. Lu Changkong shook his head, suppressed these thoughts, stood up and put the quilt that had been covering him on the side like a sleeping beauty, and then tiptoed out. Huh? You woke up so quickly. Wow, you wouldn't have eaten some devil fruit. How did the wound recover so quickly? Boa Hancock, who was now in charge of the vigil, was immediately full of joy when he saw that Lu Changkong had woken up, but after noticing that the wounds on his body had actually recovered, he suddenly said with a surprised face, looking very cute, like someone who had discovered a new world. I don't know, by the way, what's in these boxes? Lu Changkong patted his forehead with a look that I didn't know very well, and then changed the topic and said, don't you say I almost forgot. It's all here. 2 of them were only taken out of the dark compartment by the guy under my coercion and lure. I think they are both good things. After all, Boa Hancock is still young, and the topic of Lu Changkong's transfer also attracted her attention, so she was not asking. I'll take a look. Wow, it's a devil fruit, Superman. Lu Changkong looked at the 5 boxes in front of him. The last 2 were packed in brocade boxes, very gorgeous and valuable, and he knew that they were good things at a glance. Wow, the first one to open is the devil fruit, and the other 4 won't be too. Boa Hancock was also surprised, and couldn't wait to open the other 2, and found that they were both devil fruits, but unlike the previous superhuman line, the latter 2 were animal devil fruits. 5 here. If the last 2 are both devil fruits, then let's divide them equally. After all, everyone here has a contribution. Lu Changkong did not take all of the domineering for himself, because the performance of the 3 Boa Hancock sisters in battle and their performance afterwards was recognized by Lu Changkong. When they slept with Khalifa, they completely occupied all these demon fruits and then killed themselves and Khalifa, but they didn't, so Lu Changkong made such a decision, not to mention that the devil fruits can only eat 1 per person, and it is useless to have more, but it is definitely worth using these devil fruits to befriend a female emperor who will surpass the strength of the original book in the future. In the original work, Boa Hancock caused a huge shadow in her heart because of the Draco incident, which has a great hindrance and impact on cultivation, but now Boa Hancock has gone away with his own strength and perseverance. Without this shadow and his own guidance from the side, Hancock, who would have been no less powerful than the general in the future, seems that many things have changed under the influence of his variables, and it also proves that the future of the original book is not unchangeable. The first 3 are superhuman and animal, then the last 2 packaged so well must be nature. Thinking of this, Lu Changkong's eyes couldn't help but burst out 2 hot flames, and at the same time reached out to open the last 2 brocade boxes. How is that possible? Lu Changkong said in surprise, making the Boa Hancock next to him think that something happened and quickly asked, what's wrong? Since the first 3 are animal and superhuman, then the last 2 brocade boxes you said are so precious, then they should be natural departments, but now only one of them is natural and the other is not, so I am surprised. Lu Changkong was surprised and then calmed down and said, and at the same time made an analysis in his mind, this superhuman fruit can have such treatment, so it absolutely proves that this fruit is not simple. Hancock, I want the superhuman line. As for this nature department, I want to leave it to Khalifa, okay? Lu Changkong said a little embarrassed. After all, these 5 fruits are obviously the last 2 devil fruits are the most precious, especially the superhuman line in a brocade box, and now he actually asked for the most precious 2 of them as soon as he opened his mouth. Even if the skin is thick, it is a little embarrassing. Hee, can you ask my opinion to prove that you accepted me as a friend, if not for the 2 of you who believe that the future of our 3 sisters will be very miserable, let alone get the devil fruit now. These are all you and Khalifa fought hard to come back with their lives, so these should all be yours. I am very grateful to you for saving the 3 of us. How can I be so embarrassed to ask for these loot? Boa Hancock chuckled, looked at Lu Chongkong's eyes more satisfied, and then shook his head and said, "How can this be? I just said that if it is 5 fruits, then we will divide equally. The devil fruit can only eat 1 per person. It is useless to eat more. The things here also have your share of the credit. How can you monopolize? And we have not escaped. 1 more combat power is 1 more chance to live. Well, don't say it. You say I'm a little ashamed." Lu Chongkong saw what Boa Hancock was still talking about and immediately waved his hand to prevent her from continuing, and then pushed 3 of the demon fruits in front of her. Lu Chongkong was already sure that the 3 fruits in front of him were the 3 that the Boa Hancock sisters ate originally. As for this mysterious superhuman line and nature department, I don't know. As for why Lu Chongkong did not choose a natural department but chose the superhuman line, it was very simple. That is, 2 words: feeling. After crossing, Lu Chongkong sometimes has a strange feeling for certain things and certain people, and 2 years have also proved how accurate his feelings are. Just like the previous decision to kill these navies, at that time, there was a voice in his heart telling him that if he didn't go, then he would regret it for the rest of his life, so he was so desperate. Now this feeling came again. After seeing this mysterious superhuman fruit, the familiar voice appeared in his heart. Since Draco's entourage would value this mysterious superhuman fruit so much, plus his own feelings, so Lu Chongkong was making this decision. As for the nature department, to Khalifa is completely because of the care and doting of Khalifa, and is very dissatisfied with the bubble fruit she ate in the original work. Now there is a natural department, of course, to leave it to her. I ate it first, but I heard that devil fruit is hard to eat, more painful than eating, so you have to be prepared, huh? Sister, you are also awake. Come, this is the devil fruit of the natural department. As for what kind of ability, I don't know. Come and eat it first. The natural department has improved its strength a lot in a short time. Lu Chongkong saw that Khalifa and Boya Marigelder, and Boya Sonda Sonia also woke up, so he told them what he knew. Under the attentive gaze of the 3 of them, Lu Chongkong picked up this mysterious superhuman fruit with a face full of death, swallowed the foam, and then stuffed it into his mouth. Episode 14. Gag. As soon as this fruit entered the willow sky, his face turned blue and purple, and he immediately knelt on the ground and vomited. But the devil fruit is very strange that once you eat it, you can't vomit it even if you can't vomit, and the effect is very fast. Luffy turned into a rubber body about 10 seconds after eating it. Damn, it's so painful. What is worse then? It's simply the hardest thing in the world. Lu Chong said with a palpitation. His face was full of the aftermath of the disaster, and he was actually afraid of the smell of the devil fruit. Is it really that bad? Khalifa said with a curious look on the baby, and then picked up the natural fruit and ate it, and instantly her face was blue and purple like the former, that is, Lu Chongkong. But because the girl's reservedness did not vomit in public like Lu Chongkong, but looking at her sweaty appearance, I also knew how hard she endured. Big sister, can make the iron-blooded goddess of war Khalifa so unbearable. Is this devil fruit really so unpalatable? Boya Sonda Sonia saw the performance of Lu Chongkong and the 2, and asked a little scared. Well, don't say it. We are warriors of the Amazon Lily Island. You also know the benefits of the devil fruit. Will we be afraid if they eat it in the long sky? Boya Hancock said with a look of indifference. But if you look closely, you can still find that her right hand is shaking slightly at this time. Obviously her heart is not so indifferent on the surface, but in order to maintain her majesty and status as a big sister, she can only eat it indifferently, and even her face is not red and breathless, so that Khalifa and Lu Chongkong on the side are full of admiration. You guys wait for me here, I'll go get something. Boya Hancock walked to the cabin with an expressionless face and a paralyzed woman, but Lu Chongkong, who was very good at hearing, waited for a vomit. Obviously she couldn't bear it. Poof. Lu Chongkong cannot hold back, and not smile does not mean that Khalifa, who also understands what's going on, can't help it. Seeing her smile chuckle, the beautiful smile next to the 2 daughters of Boya Sonda Sonia also understood, although they did not smile as directly as Khalifa, but their faces were also handsome. Eat. The 2 women of Boya Marigerd looked at each other, and at the same time picked up the last 2 devil fruits and ate them. The 2 of them were not comparable to Boya Hancock, and even Lu Chongkong could not compare, and they directly vomited for almost a minute before recovering, but their pretty faces were still covered with cold sweat. Is it still a step slower? Damn it. Just when Boya Hancock, who had returned from the cabin, was about to say something, a cold snort that was as cold as snow came from the ship, and at the same time it was accompanied by a terrifying momentum like covering the sky, and under the cover of this momentum, even the tumbling sea actually calmed down. Not even a trace of waves, and the sea covered by the momentum was all stationary and not flowing. What is this? Domineering? Lu Chongkong thought in shock, and at the same time, just when he was about to pass out, this momentum disappeared instantly. Fortunately, this momentum is fleeting. Otherwise it is Boya Hancock who has not yet awakened with Overlord domineering. Although he has not yet awakened, he will also pass out. As far as the 5 people present have the strongest resistance to domineering is Boya Hancock, but if this domineering energy lasts for 1 more second, even Boya Hancock cannot withstand it. How is it possible? Even the sea has to be still. Even the red-haired Shanks and Whitebeard's level of Overlord-colored domineering top powerhouse can only make the Sea King tremble, but this person's domineering is actually even the sea to be still. This Is there such a strong person in One Piece? All kinds of lights flashed in Lu Changkong's eyes, and he roared in disbelief, but his body didn't even have the strength to speak under the fleeting domineering oppression just now. Lu Changkong reluctantly opened his eyes and looked at the source of the voice, and on the flag of the naval ship between them, I don't know when there was a person who couldn't see his face clearly, but he could still tell from the silhouette that the person was a black-haired woman. Or is it a step slower? Could it be that she was talking about the devil fruit? Could it be that I ate the devil fruit that originally belonged to her, and the only person who knows everything here is Draco? Is she a Draco hidden behind? And only this explanation can explain why those garbage Draco in the original book have the power to command the Navy. After about a minute, Lu Changkong felt that his control over his body had finally returned, and slowly stood up. His eyes had long been free of the previous shock, some were just curious, because he could not feel the killing intent from the other party's body. And with the strength of the other party, if he wanted to kill himself and others, he could directly let them release domineering for a few more seconds, and directly let them collapse, so Lu Changkong would be so calm. It seems that you know a lot. You have already guessed my identity? The mysterious brunette smiled, but her voice was as cold as ever, making it impossible to guess what was in her heart at this time. If you want to kill me, I want to know if the fruit that you will care about with your strength is the natural fruit of Califa? No. No, it's the Superman fruit I ate. Lu Changkong forced himself to calm down. The more the situation became calmer, the faster the speed of thinking was increased to the extreme, and he soon understood. Very smart. It seems that you not only know a lot, but also very smart. You can actually support me under my domineering for a second without awakening domineering, although it is only a few % domineering, but your nerves and will are still good, without the guidance of a famous master. You should be fighting beasts in the jungle and stealing the basic knowledge of the Navy to cultivate by yourself. The brunette girl is like a prophet, as if the truth of everything cannot be hidden from her. She is the strongest wise person. No, she is simply a person who can see through the future. Just a glance at Lu Changkong actually saw through everything in Lu Changkong. Who is this woman? It's terrible. Lu Changkong thought so in his heart, but he could only passively listen to the words of the woman in front of him. After all, the gap in the strength of the double hair is too big. The domineering energy that the other party just releases at will is to make the sea still, if it is full strength. The devil fruit is eaten, even if I can't take it out, even if I kill you, it's not easy to find it again, even if you are lucky. Eat the fruit that originally belonged to me. But it's a pity that such a fruit that is close to perfection in the early stage is gone. It seems that I can only eat this. Although this fruit ability is not worse than that. Hey. The black-haired girl's tone suddenly became a little helpless, and as she spoke, she actually took out a pineapple-like fruit in front of Lu Changkong and ate it. Natural fruit? Lu Changkong was slightly surprised after seeing this fruit clearly, and secretly said in his heart when the natural fruit became a road product, so that the fruit that the woman in front of her fancy would definitely not be garbage. Otherwise she would not have put a natural department that did not eat and looked for the superhuman line she ate. At this time, Lu Changkong was even more glad of his previous choice, and at the same time believed in his own indescribable feeling. Episode 15. The taste is really hard to eat. The brunette girl's tone fluctuated slightly. Sure enough, the taste of the devil fruit really ignored the gap in strength. Even if the girl in front of her was terrifyingly powerful, it was a little emotional fluctuation. Since you ate my devil fruit, then you must do something for me. But the premise is that you can survive. You take this thing, go to the nearest naval base nearby. As long as you show them, they will know how to do it. Of course, you can choose to escape, but then your fate. The brunette said without saying any more, but Lu Changkong also knew what it meant. That girl's luck is good. The natural fruit she ate is one of the most mysterious fruits. The bright fruit, forget it. The qualification is not bad. It is your chance to get these. As long as you can survive, then forget it. The brunette said this. Her voice was a little bitter. Obviously the fruit that Lu Changkong ate she had been looking for a long time and spent a lot of effort to find. Maybe for some reason she couldn't come directly to get the result of cheap Lu Changkong. As for the bright fruit placed in the fruit of the natural department, it is also a top fruit, but such a fruit in the mouth of this black-haired girl is actually not comparable to the superhuman fruit that Lu Changkong ate, which shows how extraordinary and terrifying the fruit that Lu Changkong ate is. And the fruit that can make people of her strength care so much is definitely not simple. Good luck, and I hope you don't disappoint me. Hey. The brunette sighed, but finally collected her mood. After all, she also had 2 hands to prepare, and the natural fruit she ate was no worse than Lu Changkong's, but her heart was more inclined to Lu Changkong's fruit. After letting out a sigh, the brunette disappeared strangely in place as before she came, without making a sound, and Lu Changkong, Califa, and Boa Hancock, who were not unconscious, did not realize how she left. Hee, the fastest red-haired Shanks and the shiny yellow ape are just jokes in front of her. Lu Changkong let out a complicated sigh, and then picked up the document that the black-haired girl threw to the place, and found that there were some words written in it that Lu Changkong did not understand, obviously some secret communication text. But at the point there was this divine dragon with teeth and claws, not a Western dragon but a Celestial Empire-style divine dragon seal. It seems that I will still have to face this woman in the future, but it's good. At least let me know that this One Piece world still hides people whose strength far exceeds Whitebeard and others, and has received so many benefits. It is worth the trip, with this document. It seems that even if the Navy and other Draco people know that it is me who killed the people here, they will not be pursued. It is really sleepy to send pillows. What I need most now is the guidance of a famous master. You actually sent me this thing. Lu Changkong looked at the document in his hand. Although he didn't know what it was with this woman's seal, he still understood the words in the title, CP9. That's right, Lu Changkong guessed that this woman is to let herself join CP9 with her own strength. This is a test for herself. If she can't join the strength cannot reach the point she expects, then she will definitely wipe herself out. For Lu Changkong. But there is no benefit. Under great pressure, the strength will improve faster, and join the 6 styles in CP9. He has been fascinated for a long time, but the physical strength is not good and there is no way to cultivate. Of course, the simplest and most difficult shaving is an exception. Go and remember where the pointer is pointing, which is the area where the auction house of the Chambord Islands should be. Lu Changkong said to the Boa Hancock, who was still in a daze when he woke up like a dream. Oh. Boa Hancock heard Willow's voice before coming to his senses, and immediately drove over to the place pointed by the memory pointer, which had not yet left the waters of the Chambord Islands, and at this speed I believe that he should be able to arrive tomorrow morning. This night, Lu Changkong and the three did not speak, because today they experienced too much and too complicated, not to mention anything else. Just the three of Boa Hancock first became slaves, then escaped, then the devil fruit, and finally came out a strong perverted mysterious brunette girl. A series of things made Lu Changkong. Several people are overwhelmed, and even Lu Changkong didn't even have the heart to pay attention to what fruit he ate. As for the comatose Boya Marigird, 2 daughters are not so easy to wake up. After all, people who are suffocated by domineering and stunned by the domineering of this perverted strong person are not so easy to wake up. They can only wait for them to wake up themselves. When he woke up the next day, Lu Changkong really found that a small island appeared in his line of sight, and as he got closer, when he finally pulled over, Lu Changkong found that there were many bubbles on this island, and it would not be so easy to burst when flying high in the sky. When the naval ship docked and stopped, Lu Changkong really found that it was already surrounded by soldiers, and even the Draco came out. Obviously the contents inside did not dare to underestimate even the Draco on the surface. Those inside listened and immediately raised their hands in surrender, otherwise we would immediately open fire. What surprised Lu Changkong the most was that there were actually 2 generals in the navy, namely the green pheasant of water and fire and the red dog, that is, the red dog. Both of them looked like they were waiting for each other, and even the people nearby opened their eyes to see who could get such treatment from the navy lineup, and even the Hades king Renly hidden there in the Chambord Islands was also invisible to the side watching the ship. It's just that everyone can't believe or even accept that the children who came out of the navy ship are all the same. The oldest is only 11 or 12 years old, because the height of Lu Changkong and Khalifa does not seem to be what 6 and 8-year-old children can have, so it is also summarized into the 11-12-year-old crowd, led by a boy with black hair and black eyes. The strength is not too much compared to the strong of the navy. Why are so many people surrounding them? This idea not only appeared in the navy, but also appeared in the hearts of Hades, Rayleigh and the pheasant, and the red dog. You guys are Draco, it's really such rubbish. After Lu Changkong came out, he looked contemptuous of everything, and the first sentence made everyone present, including the 2 generals, change their faces greatly. What do you say? You actually dare to insult us? You. The Draco with the bubble hood was obviously scolded like this for the first time. His face turned red, pointing at Lu Changkong and wanting to say something but couldn't say it. Obviously he was also facing this situation for the first time. Episode 16. Why are you upset with me? Did I scold you wrong? You tell me, there is no mistake. Lu Changkong did not stop, but continued to say with disdain, but this time he raised the document in his hand, and the golden dragon-shaped imprint fell into the people present, and those who didn't know might not be anything, but the 2 Draco people and the next marshal of the Navy headquarters Jean Pheasant's face suddenly changed wildly when he saw this mark. You're right. The Draco who was about to wave his hand just now to let people kill Lu Changkong changed his attitude by 180 degrees after seeing the imprint of the document in Lu Changkong's hand, and even groveled to Lu Changkong, completely ignoring the sluggish and stunned eyes and appearance of the last person directly kneeling on the ground, and said with sincere fear, "Oh my god, what the hell is going on here?" The arrogant Draco actually knelt down to people, and what could be more crushing than this incident? This thought appeared in everyone's hearts, and only the Draco and pheasants who knew the inside information understood what the mark represented. Get on my knees for me. Draco raised his head and looked at the people around him, and dared to stand, as if he thought of something terrible, and immediately roared at those navies, forced by the majesty of the Draco and the forces behind them. Most of the navy almost instinctively knelt down. As for those nearby who had been bullied by the Draco, they were even more frightened and fell directly to the ground. Damn, this is what's going on. They are all vicious criminals, and they actually let the righteous navy kneel for them. This Ah, the red dog on the side, that is, the red dog, who can sacrifice everything by any means for the so-called justice, saw the scene of all the navies kneeling down except himself, and immediately roared. Fortunately, the green pheasant next to him punched him in the head and then forcibly pressed him down, and the green pheasant, who saw that he still had to resist, immediately said a word in his ear. What? The red dog's face changed drastically, and finally under Lu Changkong's playful gaze, his expression changed drastically, looking very ugly, but he could only kneel on the ground helplessly, and the most stubborn red dog knelt down, and the people who didn't know it were even more shocked. What is the identity of these little ghosts in front of them? If things here go out, they may change the sky. She asked me to hand it over to you. Lu Changkong walked to the green pheasant expressionlessly and handed this document to the green pheasant, but his heart was not much better than the people here. Although he knew that the identity of that mysterious girl was absolutely very high in the Draco, but he didn't expect that it would be so high. Just a mark would have so much energy. Just now, Lu Changkong was also very worried when he saw so many people surrounding him, but in the end he decided to fight, because he believed that the woman would never let himself die so easily. So with the idea of trying it, Lu Changkong deliberately pretended to be extremely strong, and then took out this document, hoping to have an unexpected effect. Sure enough, not only this effect, but even caused a greater impact than Lu Changkong thought. This woman is not simple. Compared to Lu Changkong's calmness, the Khalifa women who followed behind him were dizzy and masterless, and they couldn't imagine that the woman's energy was so great. Even the admiral and Draco knelt because of a mark, so if she really came, they really didn't dare to think about it. The pheasant can really understand these words. It should be that the woman also expected such a situation in the morning, and the woman did this to tell herself how much energy she had. Don't think about escaping, otherwise it would be difficult to escape even if she fled anywhere. This is terrible. How come there is no description of this terrible woman in the original book? If Roger is the king of pirates, then this woman is simply the emperor in the One Piece world. Even Draco kneels when he sees her mark. Then who else is more noble and terrifying than her identity? Please come with me. Compared with the red dog, this guy, the green pheasant, is obviously more suitable to be a marshal. The navy will definitely be better if it is under his leadership. At least there is a touch of humanity and right and wrong. There will not be too much indiscriminate killing. Of course, this is only relative. Lu Changkong did not refuse. His family knows his own affairs. He is now simply a fox fake tiger power. These things cannot be excessive, can achieve the effect of leeway. Since the woman handed this thing to herself, then she can't make good use of it to obtain greater resources, then it's too much. Although you are the person recommended by the adult, you must rely on your true ability to enter CP9, and even I have no right to let you enter directly. The green pheasant was afraid that Lu Changkong and others would not know the situation, and when the time came to go back to file a complaint, then the entire naval headquarters would not be able to eat and go, so he put down his body and the so-called face, and the profession of acting as a tour guide explained clearly to Lu Changkong so as not to cause misunderstanding. After all, in the heart of the green pheasant, if the adult can have a good impression of the navy, then everything is good to say. If I'm not mistaken, the world government's tolerant care of the Draco is entirely because of that woman. It seems that my previous guesses are all correct, but unfortunately your calculations are wrong. You want to get the favor of that woman through me, but you don't know that the woman still wanted to kill me last night. Hee. Lu Changkong pretended to be listening to his ears and comprehending in his heart, but he thought very evil in his heart. And the Khalifa and other women behind her knew this situation, but they almost didn't laugh out loud when they saw Lu Changkong's appearance, and finally held back for the sake of the overall situation. By the way, Mr. General, can someone send the two of them back to the Amazon Lily Island? By the way, they were abducted by the Navy, and I hope that this situation will not happen this time. Do you say yes? When he was about to go up to the Admiral's unique ship, Lu Changkong thought that Boa Hancock is a person from Lily Island, where there are the most exquisite domineering cultivation exercises. It would be too wasteful not to go back there, and he also felt that Hancock's cultivation in Lily Island was the best, and this kind of domineering cultivation method from Boa Hancock when they met in the future, which was killing two birds with one stone. This one is absolutely fine. Hearing this, the green pheasant's face changed slightly. If it weren't for the outsiders here, he might have jumped up and scolded his mother directly. Which navy is so daring to kidnap the friend of that person valued by adults? Go back and don't divide your 5 horses into corpses. You can only sacrifice you for the great cause of the navy, and you are also dead. Lu Changkong didn't know that because of his words, he caused a very miserable and tragic end to the few remnants of the navy that had abducted them, that is, the bald navy and others, but even if they knew, it was nothing. In the words of the pheasant, they were indeed dead. Episode 17. What, Changkong, you're going to let me go back? Where am I doing badly? When Boa Hancock heard Lu Changkong's words, it was already exquisite and beautiful, coupled with the more beautiful face after eating the sweet fruit. He suddenly stepped down, and said with an unhappy face, an invisible charm emanated from her body, because it was not long after eating the devil fruit, and Boa Hancock, who could not be controlled at all, revealed this pitiful look, and those naval soldiers who were deep immediately petrified, and Lu Changkong, who had been prepared in the morning, escaped by luck, and the green pheasant who walked in the front immediately understood what was going on. but he did not dare to curse, and he did not know what to let Boa Hancock solve it. After all, he had already known from Lu Changkong that her impression of the Navy was very bad, and this situation was not intentional by her. Obviously it was not controlled after eating the devil fruit just now. You are very good everywhere, gentle and virtuous. If anyone grows up and marries you as a wife, then it is definitely his greatest happiness, but I believe that after this matter you also know the importance of strength. If you don't have a strong strength as a backing, you can't even protect the people you care about, let alone live the life you want to live, and as far as I know, Lily Island is a domineering paradise. If you go back there, your strength will definitely improve the fastest. Lu Changkong motioned for Boa Hancock to solve the petrification of those people. If he had the strength, he would not care about those people. After all, those people have a bad mind for Boa Hancock, but now he is just a fox fake tiger power. In the face of the pheasant's help-seeking eyes, he is not good to get too much face, so he can only let Boa Hancock solve their petrification, while explaining to her. Let's make an agreement. You are now 12 years old, 17 years old to go to sea. I will come to you the day you go to sea. No matter the end of the earth I will come. How about? Under the constant persuasion of Lu Changkong Xiaoji and reason, plus Boa Hancock is also very homesick. Plus she is also a reasonable person who knows that Lu Changkong is for her own good, so she finally reluctantly nodded and agreed. Although she and Lu Changkong have only been separated for a day since they realized that they are going to be separated now, sometimes the relationship between people is so strange, even if it is only a minute, even a look can get a good impression of each other. The two are exactly like this, although the time of acquaintance is very short, but the relationship established by each other is very deep. Please come with me. With the lesson of the previous time, those naval soldiers did not dare to look at Boa Hancock. Not to mention the ability of Boa Hancock. Just because they could make the Admiral and Draco kneel, it was not something they could offend, so they all led the way in front with their heads down. Phew, let's go too. You don't need to give me the back door. Other people will give me the same training if they are training. If I die like this, then it proves that I am just that, and that woman will not blame you. Lu Changkong was worried that when the time came, the green pheasant was afraid of offending the woman and going to the back door for himself, so he immediately blocked his thoughts with a sentence. Rest assured, CP9 is completely dependent on its own strength, and I have no right to interfere. The green pheasant is still dressed beautifully on the surface, but there is still a trace of embarrassment in his eyes. Obviously he also had this idea in his heart just now. In order to please that adult, even the green pheasant, a person with a firm position, had to make a series of actions and ideas that violated justice, but it was precisely because of Lu Changkong's words that the green pheasant had a trace of appreciation in his eyes when he looked at Lu Changkong. It is worthy of being the person that the adult fancy. He can have such an awareness when he is only about 6 years old. I hope he can survive, otherwise the Navy will be miserable by then. Qing Pheasant sighed in his heart and thought, although Lu Changkong said that the mysterious girl would not blame them, but where would they believe it? Obviously all this was Lu Changkong's previous strength and proper use. If Lu Changkong cowered, the effect received was definitely not as good as it is now. Episode 18. If you let Lu Changkong at this time know that because of his little means, he will actually make the most idle green pheasant so worried and calculating in his heart, he will definitely laugh and cramp. Where can he have any background, relying on his own fooling? You must know that just now under the gaze of so many strong people, his heartbeat speed has increased countless times. After waiting for the general warship belonging to the green pheasant, under the arrangement of the green pheasant, he went to a most advanced room to take a bath and change into clean clothes. And then Lu Changkong remembered that he seemed to have eaten the superhuman fruit that made the mysterious girl want to take it for herself. And until now he has not gone to understand and obtained information, and he doesn't even know what this fruit is called. Thinking of this, Lu Changkong was sure that there would be no danger here, and immediately focused his thoughts in his mind, recalling the information that appeared in his mind after eating the devil fruit. Phew, I finally understand why the superhuman fruit that woman would want to get so much. This is simply a near invincible fruit, but at the same time the most chicken fruit. After accepting this piece of information a moment later, Lu Changkong couldn't help but sigh. It's a long story. This devil fruit is a mirror fruit. The ability is very simple, that is, to make a mirror, whether it is your own or someone else's. This fruit falls into the hands of a strong person is simply the most terrifying ability, but falling into the hands of ordinary people with weak hands without fighting power is the most chicken fruit. Why say this? Very simple. Every devil fruit, whether superhuman, animal, or even natural, at the beginning of the ability is the weakest, with continuous excavation, exercise, and is to see the user's talent. Fruit ability will be more and more perverted, such as the Whitebeard's true fruit can even be shattered by control. At the beginning of the most is to shake the air. The power is very small, everything depends on how the user uses him. And this mirror fruit is actually very simple. At the beginning can only make their own mirror image, exactly the same as themselves, but cannot move and have no strength. But with the continuous development of these mirror images will be like the Warcraft sword saint can move and move, but there is no strength. As the ability to continuously develop the mirror fruit continues to improve, then the final created mirror will have the same strength as themselves. You can imagine that with the strength of that woman is so terrible, if there is this mirror fruit, developed to a certain extent, not to mention how much to make, just 2 mirror avatars and 3 identical strength of her will be how terrifying it will be. No wonder she will spend so much effort to get this fruit. This is only Lu Changkong's preliminary guess. After all, now he has only just obtained the ability of this fruit, can only separate a mirror avatar and cannot move. I don't know if after this fruit is developed to the extreme, these mirror doppelgangers will have their own thoughts like the external avatars of mythological novels. Lu Changkong couldn't help but think in his heart, and at the same time he was even more firm in his idea of trying to become stronger. The stronger the strength of his body, the more terrifying the ability to mirror the fruit. Try it first. In other words, Lu Changkong began to dream that he would come to the world of One Piece, let alone get the devil fruit, and still get such a perverted fruit. Thinking of this, Lu Changkong couldn't wait to experiment, and his heart moved. Mirror doppelganger. Lu Changkong only felt that his brain was suddenly a little heavy, and he didn't know when an expressionless person appeared, but both his body appearance and temperament were exactly the same as Lu Changkong, and Lu Changkong only felt that his vision seemed to be split in two, as if he had 2 bodies at the same time. But it was not contradictory at all. But unfortunately, this avatar now can't move even dong except for sharing a perspective. But even so, Lu Changkong is very excited. Wait, I remember that the core of this devil fruit is a little strange, the tone of that woman, isn't it? Just when Lu Changkong was about to study his fruit ability, a picture suddenly appeared in his mind, and at the same time remembered the tone of the woman's speech at that time. This fruit was like a perfect fruit in her heart. Plus she saw that the core of the devil fruit she ate was different from the core of Califa, and the pits of the girls of Boya Sonia, so Lu Changkong did not throw it away on a whim at that time and saved it. At this time, an idea quietly appeared in his heart. As soon as this idea appeared, even Lu Changkong, who had experienced many life and death battles, couldn't help but be full of ecstasy, and immediately picked up the clothes made of tusked tiger skin that he had just changed and took out a crystal-like fruit core from his pocket. And then let people get a big poke of seawater from the sea, which can definitely fill a bathtub. For safety's sake, Lu Changkong immediately ran to the next room and brought Califa, who had just come out of the bath and looked as beautiful as a hibiscus out of water. Califa, I'm going to do an experiment, and if you see me sinking, you're going to pull me up immediately. Lu Changkong took a deep breath and poured all the seawater on the bathtub, then put the crystal-like kernel in his hand aside, and then sat in the seawater. Ah! Lu Changkong exclaimed. He found that he could no longer control his body. Obviously it was only shallow enough to dive in the bathtub, but he found that the swimming he had learned to swim actually seemed to be forcibly deprived, and the whole person sank down like soft mud. Califa on the side saw that the situation was not right and immediately reached out her right hand and pulled Lu Changkong's body up before it all sank into the bathtub. But even so, the helplessness in the face of the sea just now, the sense of powerlessness still made Lu Changkong's face show horror. In the moment just now, countless voices seemed to appear in his own brain to denounce himself. He could not resist, could not even give birth to the idea of resistance, as if he would die at any time. Changkong, what's wrong with you? After eating the devil fruit, you can only reach out and touch the sea water at most. The body must not touch the sea water, that is too much. It will be abandoned by the sea, and the power lost by the capable person is proportional to the amount of water it touches. How can you be so messy? Califa said with a worried look, wanting to reprimand Lu Changkong but unable to use a serious tone, and the words that came out became a kind of doting and pampering. Of course I know this, try again, rest assured that this time it will surprise you. Lu Changkong pretended to be funny and you were waiting to see and immediately amused Califa, and the originally somewhat bad mood also improved, and at the same time, he couldn't help but look at Lu Changkong with curious eyes to see how he surprised himself. Episode 19. Lu Changkong did not explain but smiled confidently, but his heart was also bottomless. After all, he was also guessing that the woman had been pursuing a fruit for so long. Even if she had the same powerful fruit, she would not eat it. To find the ideal fruit in her heart, and those 2 words, perfect, proved that she is a person who pursues perfection, and absolutely does not allow herself to have any flaws. But this time it was accidentally destroyed by herself, so that the perfect fruit will definitely not be so simple. Lu Changkong, who thought so much in his heart, immediately picked up the crystal fruit core placed next to him, and then went into the sea again, and the same feeling of being denounced came again. But at this time, Lu Changkong only felt that his spirit, the flesh, seemed to suddenly rise an invisible barrier to block these denunciations. The sense of powerlessness was all blocked out. Lu Changkong found that he could stay in the sea water without becoming a dry duck, but there was a disadvantage that he could not use the ability. But for Lu Changkong, this is already the biggest benefit. How? How so? You. Califa looked shocked, stunned to look at Lu Changkong, who was swimming freely in the bathtub at this time, unable to say a complete sentence for a long time, and finally the only reason left made her immediately close her mouth, looking at the crystal fruit core in Lu Changkong's hand, and immediately understood that all this was all because of this thing. This is a secret treasure, countless times more precious than the natural fruit. If anyone knows, then Lu Changkong is absolutely very dangerous. There is a fly in the ointment is that I can't use the fruit ability. It should be that this crystal fruit core seals the devil fruit in my body, so that the sea can't feel the existence of the demon fruit ability, so I can move freely. but I don't know if it will be like this in the face of the sea Lu stone. As far as I know, falling into the sea will be weak, so that it is impossible to swim and automatically control the ability to drown. But the sea Lu stone is not like this. Sea Lu stone will make people weak but will not lose the fruit ability, and if you take Hai Lu stone's handcuffs and other things to exercise for a long time, you can completely overcome the weakness of Hai Lu stone. Of course, all this is just my guess. Hai Lu stone is only ore after all, and the curse of the devil fruit is not comparable to the sea. After Lu Changkong sorted out his thoughts, he then said the information he saw in the original work, and then slowly expressed his opinions through the experience he had just experienced. So I think the sea Lu stone helps us a lot. If you use the sea Lu stone to cultivate, the effect will definitely be greater, especially for those with natural ability. Don't look at me like this. I am talking about you. Sister, I am also good for you. And I also said that I share happiness and suffering, since my sister wants to train like this. Of course I will accompany you. Lu Changkong saw Khalifa put her gaze on her face, and quickly said the following words. I didn't want to admit it before, and I didn't dare to admit it, but I know that today I have to face it. My brother is a cowardly person, he knows very little, and to put it bluntly, he is simply a gentleman. But in the past 2 years, your performance, your insight, your opinion, and your knowledge have all told me that you are not my younger brother, but I dare not think about it. I am afraid that I will lose the motivation to live after knowing the truth. But today I know that I have to face it. You are right. Cultivation is to bravely fight all the shadows that affect my state of mind. Khalifa said in a deep voice with extremely serious words. Lu Changkong on the side seemed to have anticipated the arrival of this day long ago. His expression was calm, without a trace of emotional fluctuations, but like a listener, he sat in front of Khalifa very honestly and listened to Khalifa's words. Thank you for taking care of me, caring, and companionship for me in the past 2 years. I think I may have gone crazy without your appearance, or I may not have the motivation and courage to live, and even I will commit suicide, but you came to make me find the joy of loss again. Smile. Thank you. Khalifa's eyes slowly turned red as she spoke. 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down, her voice trembled a little, and in the end, Khalifa couldn't help but fall into Lu Changkong's arms and cry. Fool, don't cry, am I still there? I said that since that day Lu Meng has become a person in the past tense and has died. My current name is Lu Changkong, and I have an older sister named Khalifa, and this fact will remain eternal. Lu Changkong looked at the poor Khalifa, and suddenly felt 1,000 tenderness in his heart, and couldn't help kissing Khalifa's tears. This intimate act suddenly made Khalifa, who was still crying, turn red, and even the sobbing sound was stuck. But I found myself not only thinking of you as my brother, but also, it's even more like me. After all, Khalifa is only an 8-year-old little girl. Although her body and mind are very mature, her physical development is no less than that of a 14 or 15-year-old girl, and her psychological development is no less than that of an 18-year-old adult woman. But let her daughter's family say those shameful words to the person in front of her, who is also a brother in her heart and a favorite person. Think you like people, right? Lu Changkong was slightly stunned to understand. Khalifa's abnormal behavior recently has made him feel something unusual, although he has not filmed dragging. But after all, he has seen many lovers come together, and to separate. He has seen a lot of his roommates pairing and break up. So Khalifa's abnormal changes he only understood for a few days. You. Hearing this, Khalifa's conditioned reflector raised her head, her watery teary eyes full of surprise and puzzlement, obviously asking Lu Changkong, how did you know? In the past 2 years, our life has accumulated bits and pieces, although there is no vigorous love, but it is bit by bit, turned into a small river, a long river, and finally becomes a lake and the sea, fine water and long streams. Although I have not been in love, but I also know, in my heart this is also the most perfect love. Not to mention that we have experienced many life and death partings, and we also know deep down that the other party is not our sister and brother. So the qualitative change and sublimation of the relationship is a matter of time. I have also discovered it before and I am ready. Lu Changkong was like a love expert telling her own solution for Khalifa, answering the questions in her heart for her. And finally Lu Changkong stretched out her hand, pulled her closer to her under Khalifa's wide-eyed gaze, leaned into her and whispered something in her ear that made Khalifa cry with joy. Men sometimes have to take the initiative. Although I am not a man or a boy now, from today I am not only your younger brother, but also the other half who accompanies you through the road of life, a lover who never leaves you, a man. You can also say a boyfriend and husband. Are you willing to accompany me down? Episode 20. Phew. I do. Khalifa sobbed in Lu Changkong's arms, while nodding her little head hard, as if she was afraid that Lu Changkong would regret it. For a time, this pair of men and women who were obviously only 6 and 8 years old, but their physical and mental age was no less than adults, hugged quietly together, enjoying this hard-won warmth and affection on this ship unique to the General. The General's warship really deserves to be the speed of the warship of the Grand Prize is really nothing to say, although the Chambord Islands are very close to the naval headquarters. But the General pirate ship or naval ship does not have a day to basically think of it. But this naval ship actually took only a little more than 3 hours to arrive. Sure enough, it is worthy of the world government, although the high-end combat power on the surface is not as much as the Great Sea Pirates. but it can suppress the pirate forces. In terms of science and technology, the Navy is indeed superior to the pirates too much. Of course, this is in general, with the exception of Whitebeard, a sea thief with a fleet. After going ashore, looking at the majestic building of the naval headquarters is the largest and most spectacular building that Lu Changkong has seen since he came to this world, and no prisoner has ever been able to escape from the naval headquarters, even the Golden Lion, which definitely hides a lot of unknown powerful combat power. Qing Pheasant is also worthy of being a candidate for the marshal, and immediately after getting off the boat, let people take Lu Changkong to the place where CP9 was trained, and then he himself ran back to report to the warring states. After all, Lu Changkong's matter is not so simple. Of course, this is in his thoughts. In the eyes of Lu Changkong and others, this is simply a very simple thing. Everything is very Lu Changkong Fox fake tiger power. With the arrangement of the green pheasant, these navies dare not embarrass Lu Changkong and the two. With amazing speed and efficiency for Lu Changkong and the two arranged accommodation dormitory. Under Lu Changkong's strong request, the two live in a house. Don't think crookedly, the two are only 6 and 8 years old. Even if they are mature, it is impossible to push down the game. This is also to have a good care, and you can discuss with each other when cultivating and studying the devil fruit. The next day, Lu Changkong and Khalifa got up early, and after a hearty breakfast, they were led by a rear admiral to a small island behind the naval headquarters. To Lu Changkong's surprise, the sea near this island was full of one huge whirlpool after another. It seems that the people trained in it do not want to escape at all except for being trained to come out alive. So many whirlpools, and so huge. Without the strong physique of a strong man of the level of Hades Rayleigh, it is impossible to swim in the sea, of course, except for those who can walk in the moon. You two are new. From today you two will be trained like them. I don't care what your status is. You are one of the students here when you come here, but then go and feed the sharks. A one-eyed dragon navy appeared in front of Lu Changkong, and at the same time he was followed by a group of children aged 6 to 12. Probably these were all freshmen. Most of the children had a green color, not even a little murderous. Of course, there were a few exceptions, such as a few very familiar faces. Rob Lucy wears the same costume as in the original book, but in a scaled-down version, and there is no pigeon that is always with him. Kaku, who looks like a wooden man, has a charming smile and cheerful personality, and has a very kind heart, but Lu Changkong, who knows his affairs, does not think so. With Lu Changkong scanning one after another, he found that many of them are members of the future CP9, Bruno, Noel, but the two oldest in the original book are missing, that is, Gabra and the lion Snuggle. No wonder Lucci in the original book is obviously partial to Kaku when he sees Gabra and Kaku quarreling. It turns out that one met after joining CP9 or later, and the other has grown up since childhood to do tasks together and practice together. As long as you don't have mental problems, you know what to do. Enlisted. The one-eyed dragon roared, in order to intimidate these newcomers, including some noble people, such as the descendants of the general. This one-eyed dragon even exuded his powerful murderous aura and covered Lu Changkong and Khalifa. It's a pity that Lu Changkong and the two have not lived in vain in the past 2 years. The life and battle in the jungle in the face of countless fierce beasts cultivated murderous aura is far less than the one-eyed dragon, but in terms of psychological quality and will endurance is very strong, especially after experiencing the earth-shattering domineering baptism of the mysterious girl. Both of them completely ignore the domineering of the one-eyed dragon, and walk slowly to the queue with a graceful and leisurely pace. The two of them such an unconventional performance immediately attracted the attention of several of them, such as Rablusai, who was 5 years older than Lu Changkong and was already very powerful. When he looked at Lu Changkong, his eyes were no longer disdainful, but an acknowledgement. After all, he could see at a glance that the two people in front of him were about the same age as Kaku, and there was certainly a gap in strength compared to himself, who had been practicing for more than 5 years. But the strength of the two should definitely not be underestimated. Sure enough, it is worthy of being introduced by the general, and he can be completely immune to my murderous chi, which is what only Roblet can do, but he can often do it under the oppression of my murderous aura. But the two newcomers in front of me and only 6 and 8 years old imps can actually do this, and they are really good seedlings. The one-eyed dragon's eyes flashed. His strength is stronger than Rob Lucci. He also knows more than him. His views and vision are not comparable to Rob Lucci at this time. With some information about Lu Changkong and the two, he is very clear about the situation of the two, and he is very satisfied with the performance of the two. Put on these two outfits. The one-eyed dragon nodded and immediately said loudly to Lu Changkong and Khalifa, pointing to the clothes like vests on the side. Lu Changkong found that everyone present wore them, but people like Rob Lucci were wearing them without letting people see. It was sad that this vest was indeed ugly enough. Hiss. Lu Changkong immediately couldn't help but gasp as soon as he picked up the vest and put it on. So heavy, so heavy, so heavy. For 2 years, Lu Changkong was worried that weight training would cause damage to his still developing immature body, so he didn't do it. This time was also the first time he used it. What shocked Lu Changkong was that this dress was not simply weight-bearing training for a certain part of his body. He found that the moment he put it on, this dress seemed to cover every part of Lu Changkong's body, organs, and even blood and cells. Otherwise, with Lu Changkong's strength, he would never show such an expression. Run with me. If you can't keep up with the sea outside, it will be your burial place. The one-eyed dragon roared, not giving Lu Chongkong and Califa time to adapt, and immediately took the lead and ran. Future shows are wonderful. Lu Chongkong and Califa didn't care, but instead looked at each other and showed a kind of knowing look, and then took steps that were several times heavier than before and ran at the end of the team. Hokage no Bone Demon World has been completed, and the fattening brother can be slaughtered, and please support the new book.